Hey guys, Patrick Wind here, and welcome to this training model in which I'm going to show you what really matters when it comes to daily optimization of your ads. So what are we going to cover today? Well, I'm going to show you how you can really start your campaigns in a proper way, then how you optimize on ad set and on ad level, then how you can apply the right breakdowns. Then of course you should definitely have the ad hygiene in your consideration, so how you can clean up your ads. And then last, we're also going to cover the importance of increasing your relevance score. So let's get started. How should you actually start your campaign? Well, you should definitely apply a full funnel structure. So have separate campaigns for prospecting and retargeting. Okay, and so do not mix them up and have them separated in different campaigns. Apply A/B testing structure in your prospecting, and in retargeting have hot, warm, cold ad sets for the different audiences in place. So far so good. And now we're going into the setup recommendations, which many people get completely wrong. It's very important that you do not dilute your budget too much. So I many times see ad sets where you have €3, and just in order that you can have for one audience all the different placements. That is okay if you have huge budgets, but not with small budgets. With small budgets, an ad set of €3 per day will actually not do anything. Okay, so the minimum should be 5, but that's already very low. Okay, therefore I recommend to have at least €10 daily budget per ad set, and this way you can give the algorithm at least some data in order to optimize for the specific event that you're going for. But just imagine that you're selling watches for €100 and you're giving it €5 daily budget. Okay, so even though you would be break even with a cost per acquisition of €100, if you only give it €5 per day, this would actually take 20 days to give you one sale for being even break even, you know. So that's not gonna happen. So have in mind what's your realistic cost per acquisition, and then have in mind that having significantly less than €10 daily budget really is diluting your budget a lot and doesn't collect enough data points. Moreover, when it comes to the concrete ad level, I recommend to have at least 2 to 4 ads with different creatives in each ad set. Okay, I mean, of course you also want to test different copies, but the majority of the importance definitely lays on the creative. Okay, the one super important point that in your retargeting hot, you usually have DPA ads in there, so dynamic product ads, and many people think, okay, that's it, that's good, I have DPA, it's dynamic, and I just have one ad in there. Okay, but you can still test different kind of DPAs, because DPAs could be a carousel, DPA could be collection, DPA could be an offer, DPA could have different copies, and all of this you should also test. So do not have just one ad within a DPA ad set, but also have 2 to 4 ads in a DPA ad set. And then something that really matters to me is that you have to be patient. You cannot judge an ad set that you launch today and judge it after 3 hours if it works good or not. I mean, you can do that if you spend €10,000 per day on this ad set, but that's not going to happen in the majority of the cases. So rather give each ad or each ad set at least 3 days, okay, before you judge it, and give it either 3 days or 2 times the cost per acquisition of amount spent. So what does it mean? So if my cost per acquisition, my target cost per acquisition is €30, for example, then I should spend at least €60 on this ad set in order to judge it properly. Okay, because imagine I've spent €40 on that and it didn't bring me any sales. Well, if it spends €1 more, and in the next euro it already converts, then we're going into an interesting area. And if then the next euro also brings me a sale, it's already in a good area. So therefore I recommend to give each ad set at least 3 days of testing, or if you have spent more than 2 times your target cost per acquisition and it didn't bring anything in good returns, then of course you can also deactivate it. However, I'm not saying that you should not watch out for outliers, okay? So if you have spent only 10 or 15 or 20 euros on this specific ad set, but you see that the CPM is super high, or the click-through rate is very low, or the CPC is very high, well, then of course you can turn it off if you see an outlier, okay? But if all the upper funnel events are okay, are within the normal distribution, so within your normal KPIs, then you should give it 3 days, okay? But please have in mind you should take care of outliers. So if something really weird happens, if some really weird upper funnel KPIs are there, then of course you can turn it off, okay? And one further recommendation is do not deactivate your hot retargeting because it's not because of the audience. So if you have an ad set, add to cart last 7 days minus purchase, okay, so this is a very hot audience, and for some reason during this week it does not convert, do not turn it off. It's not because of the audience, it's because of this specific week was not good, or because the creative does not convince the person, okay? In this case, if this specific ad set wouldn't work for me, I would not turn off the ad set. I would rather change the creatives, okay, and try new images or new videos, because the audience is a very good one and they should always have it active. So how does it look in real life? Well, the setup of a full funnel system, of course, you have a different one for prospecting, a different one for retargeting, and a budget that is not diluted too much. Should have at least 10 euros daily budget. If you really have very low budget, then you can go down to 5, but that is really the absolute maximum and not recommendable. It is better with 10 euros daily budget per ad set. Then, how can we actually optimize on ad set level? What are actually the possibilities that we have? Well, we could either allocate budget, we could also deactivate the worst ad sets, or we can duplicate the best ad sets. So how does this actually work? For allocating the budget, we could separate between prospecting and retargeting and compare the past and current benchmarks. So it's very important that you do not mess up, that you do not compare apples and pears. So for example, the KPIs for prospecting, you should not compare with your KPIs for the retargeting ad sets, okay? So of course in the retargeting ad sets you have a lower cost per acquisition, higher ROAS than in prospecting, but you should not compare them directly. You should rather compare prospecting ad sets with prospecting ad sets and the prospecting benchmark, and the retargeting ad sets with the retargeting ad sets and the retargeting benchmarks, okay? And the benchmarks, you could either take the ones from the past and the current ones. And I'm gonna show you all of this in much more detail in a later chapter, how you can actually compare and judge the right benchmarks and the right KPIs. So what should we do now if we see, for example, in the prospecting ad set that it worked very nicely or it didn't work that well? Well, we could change the budget, but we should not change it by more or less than 15. We should not change it by more than 15%, plus or minus. So if you start with 100 euros per day, we should not give it more than 115, and we should not lower it more than to 85. Okay, why does this happen? Well, because bigger budget changes are considered significant edits and will therefore reset the learning phase, which is something that we really do not want in prospecting. The number of 15% actually changes quite a lot. So the recommendation used to be 20%, but the algorithm got a little bit more aggressive on that and already considers now significant budget changes even from 15% on, okay? So watch out for that it could also lower to 10% in the future. So it's important to have that in mind. So how do you compare that? How do you check that? Well, just on ad set level, you do your budget changes, do it for like 12% or 14%, and just check if the learning phase still is active and is not resetted, okay? In retargeting, of course, you can also reallocate your budget and you can increase the budget for hot, warm or cold retargeting. But something that you really have to have in mind is the frequency when it comes to retargeting, because of course if you have a hot retargeting audience and it brings you a ROAS of 4 or 5, then of course you want more of that. But even though you give it double the budget or 3 times the budget, you won't have more audience in there. Okay, so the only thing that happens if you're already converting, if you're already reaching all of your hot retargeting audience and you just give it double the budget, so the only thing that would happen is that you basically increase frequency and you start annoying people, and they will report your ads and you will get lower relevance scores. So watch out for frequency, and I'll give you also some very detailed recommendation what's the perfect frequency in a later chapter. What else can we do besides reallocating budget? Well, we could deactivate the worst ad sets. Once again, we have to judge them based on the right time, the time zone, for the right timeline. For example, I recommend to take a look at today and yesterday together. So, for example, if I'm on the 5th of June, I'll take the 4th and the 5th of June as my most important time area. And based on that, if I have enough data, I make my decisions. If I do not have enough data, I take, for example, the last 3 or last 7 days, including today, because I really want to see, I really want to have enough data. And then before I make my final decision, okay, I also compare it to the lifetime. So for example, if I see that an ad set over the past days was not too amazing, so it's in the gray zone, so it's not definitely very good, but also not very bad. It's like in the gray zone over the past days. And then I would take a look at the lifetime and would try to understand if it, at least in the lifetime, was very good or not that good. And this helps me when it's in the gray zone to really judge it properly. And if you decide it's not good and you want to deactivate it, go ahead, but please do not delete them. So we really need all of this old data in order to make our decisions for the future. So many people, when they deactivate an ad set, a bad one, then they delete it already. So don't do that. It's really not a good idea. Just deactivate it, and then you can always filter for the active ones, and this one will not show up. What else can we do? In the best case, if it's an ad set that we judge as positive, well, then we can duplicate it and create some micro variations of this specific one, which will bring us which is actually a good way to increase the budget by more than 15%. So imagine we're starting with an ad set with 100 euros and it works very nicely. Then we give it 15% more because we see that it worked nicely. However, if you want to already double the budget to 200, well, the best way would be to duplicate this ad set, make a micro variation out of it. Micro variation means that you change something in the duplicate. For example, you give it a different bid, you give a different budget or a different optimization event, and therefore the algorithm would start at another point of the audience, and it will give you more spend and more reach within this specific audience. However, I also recommend to do not duplicate more than 1 or 2 times per day, because more duplicates won't help you. It's better to do not dilute this specific audience too much, at least not more than 2 times per day. So I would not recommend to duplicate it 10 times already. Okay, so do it step by step. Duplicate it maximum 1 or 2 times per day. If the micro variations work well, then the next day you could duplicate it another time, and then the day afterwards again, so on and so forth. So how does it look in real life? Well, if you want to judge your data properly, you have to select the first the time filter. So you have to select at what time you're taking a look at. Then here's one very interesting tool that you can actually compare different time periods. For example, here we compare last 7 days and the 7 days before. That's very good because it will give you this little column. If you see on the right in the orange field, you see that we compare, for example, the 7 days from the 9th to the 15th of July versus the 7 days from the 2nd to the 8th of July. We see the changes over time, and we can properly judge the ad set to then make our decisions if we want to reallocate the budget, increase or decrease, if you want to deactivate the worst, if you want to deactivate this ad set, or if you want to duplicate this ad set. Yes, and we could also change the budgets not only in the budget column, where we can of course edit it, but we can also select it, go and edit, then edit budget, and then increase the daily budget or decrease the daily budget by a certain percentage, which we can already do directly in here. So we do not have to calculate it somewhere else. We can just decrease or increase by a budget, by a percentage here. So that was the important thing when it comes to ad set level, but we can also improve our performance when it comes to ad level. So on ad level, we could either edit an existing ad, we could create a new ad, or we could deactivate an existing ad. And for you, it is important to understand which effect does each of those three options actually have on the learning phase. So when it comes to editing an existing ad, so you could either change the image, video, copies, headlines, or the call to action, this definitely will reinitiate the learning phase. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So if the algorithm learns that, okay, showing a man with my product and the specific copy to this audience has this and that learning phase. If I then change the male picture to a female picture where I show a woman using the product, then of course the learning phase is obsolete. Okay, so editing an existing ad set will always reinitiate the learning phase, which is not good in prospecting. Okay, creating a new ad. For example, you could duplicate your best performing ad in the same ad set, or you can also duplicate it into another ad set. This will also reinitiate the learning phase because it's basically new content. And imagine that in the example that I just brought, that I was showing a male picture, a man using my product to a specific audience. Imagine that I'm now showing only the product in front of a new background. Okay, well, this is a complete new learning, this is a new content, and it therefore obviously reinitiates the learning phase. But there is a third option which will not reinitiate the learning phase, which is deactivating an existing ad. Therefore, it makes a lot of sense to already have 2 to 4 ads from the very first moment on within the ad set, because you can then optimize and deactivate the worst performing ads and only maintain the winner one. So if you start with 4, deactivate the worst 2, and then after a couple of days deactivate also only the second to best. So you only maintain with the really best one. Okay, and this will not reinitiate the learning phase. And of course, you want to analyze your benchmarks of this specific ad set. So within the ad set of the ads, of course, and watch out for outliers. So for example, if we would have this specific situation where we would have 3 ads within an ad set, then we could obviously compare the lower funnel KPIs, but also the upper funnel KPIs of these 3 ones. And for example, we see that this carousel 1 brought the highest ROAS, had the lowest cost per purchase, had the lowest cost per add to cart, and also had the lowest cost per website checkout. I'm not saying that you only should focus on lower funnel KPIs when it comes to ad level, but it's a very nice picture that we see here, and so we have a clear winner. But when it comes to optimization at level, especially the upper funnel KPIs also matter, because it's a lot about the click-through rate, it's a lot about the cost per click of one specific ad in comparison to another. But I will also cover that in a later chapter in much more detail. How can we apply the right breakdowns to our campaigns, ad sets, and ads in order to really get more information out of the data set that we have in front of us? Well, we could analyze on macro level, so on the account. We could do it on micro level, so campaign, ad set, and ads. And this really helps us to understand the evolution. So on macro level, we could check your account overview for general learnings, and the most important breakdowns are placement, age, gender, country, region, and device. And all of this information is super valuable for us, not only from an operative point, but also from a strategic point, to understand if my products sell better for men or for women, in what's the right age group, so on and so forth. On micro level, this will give us a detailed performance overview for each specific campaign, ad set and ad. So it could be that one ad works very nicely for men, but it doesn't work for women. Okay, well, that's a good learning. Then I show it the next time just to the male audience, okay, and not to the female one. It could very well be that one outreach campaign that I'm doing in whole Europe only works in Germany. Well, that's a good learning. Well, then in the next time I only create this specific set of characteristics, but only for the German market and not for the entire European market. And then we want to understand the evolution. Something that has worked a couple of weeks ago does not necessarily still work today over the past 3 days. So always document your learning and apply this learning to future campaigns and have in consideration the evolution. So always try to understand if something works better now than it did the days and weeks before, or vice versa, if something that worked nicely in the past stopped working, okay? And this evolution is of course very important, and therefore I always compare different time slots, okay? And if you apply these breakdowns, it could look, for example, like this. So you would see, like, out of the 932 euros we spent here, and which age group did we spend it the most? How did each age group perform when it comes to ROAS, when it comes to cost per purchase, when it comes to upper funnel KPIs like click-through rates. You could do the same with gender, and one of my favorite ones is actually with placements. So you see if either Instagram stories or Facebook mobile newsfeed or Instagram feed or whatever, or desktop right column work the best for you. Exactly. Here is the one for the placement, so you can really see either Facebook mobile newsfeed or Messenger or Facebook desktop newsfeed or whatever, and you can apply these breakdowns not only on account overview, not only on campaign overview, but also on ad set or ad overview. So you can really see one specific ad performed nicely for men or women, or one specific ad set, one audience was very resonated very well with on Instagram, but it did not resonate on Facebook, for example. And all of these insights you really get from the breakdowns. And once you get all of this understanding, you want to clean up your ads. So you want to control the ad hygiene, okay? Because it can't be possible that you're paying money to promote one ad, which looks like a post, where you got very terrible comments below. So always take care of potential shitstorms, and these negative comments you should always hide, so that only the person can still see it who posted it, but all the others can't. Okay, and this actually looks like this. Okay, so you can simply click the hide comment button, and this person will still see it, so they will think that you didn't delete it. Okay, but all the others won't. And what else should we do? Well, we should pimp up our ads. So we should really motivate our friends, fans, and family to engage with our content. So they can leave likes, shares, and authentic comments. Okay, so not just weird comments, but authentic ones, because this additional engagement really matters. Like showing the algorithm that this is content that really receives some social proof and some organic engagement will make you benefit from higher relevance scores. Okay, and how can we actually see the comments that we have received? Well, it's very easy. If you are on ad level, for example, you can select. You can go into the preview, okay, and then you select Facebook post with comments. And once we are at the Facebook post with comments, it will bring us to our Facebook page, and it will show all the likes, comments, and shares that we have received from this specific ad. Okay. And then the last part that I would like to share with you is the relevance score, because it really matters. And so first I would like to show you why it is important, and then where you can find it. And then in a later chapter, I'm going to show you all the tips, tricks, and hacks on how to increase your relevance score. So include your relevance score in your dashboard. It really matters. really have it in there. And once again, it's not going to be shown up on campaign level or ad set level. It's only going to be displayed on ad level, okay? And it's a number from 1 to 10, and you really should have it in your dashboard, okay? So if you don't have it in your dashboard, go to your ad account right now and include it in your dashboard, okay? Because it really matters. And control your relevance score and watch out for low numbers. So if you have, it's a rating from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best and 1 the lowest. And if you have low numbers, so 1 to 4, this is a real problem, okay? Why? Because it's part of the equation that Facebook takes into consideration when it comes to judging who is going to be the winner of one specific ad auction, okay? It's part of the consumer experience, so where it is in the user value on the right side, and it really matters if an ad is relevant to your audience or not. And if the ad has low relevance score, what will happen is that you will basically pay more to reach the same audience as if you would have a high relevance score, okay? And therefore I recommend to react to low numbers, okay, by iterating either the audience or the ad, okay? And in a later chapter I will show much more details about what you can really do to hack the relevance score in order to get 10 scores on the relevance score. And this is where you find it. Basically on ad level, you have the column relevance score, which is a combination of positive feedback, negative feedback, and expected conversion rates, okay? Therefore, I always recommend to also include the column for positive and negative feedback, which can be the low, medium, or high. And then the relevance score, here you should really take in consideration that 1 to 4 is really bad, 5 to 7 is okay, and 8 to 10 is great. So guys, in this video we have covered a nice overview of all the possibilities that we have when it comes to daily optimization, how to start your campaigns properly, how to optimize them on ad set and on ad level, how we can apply the right breakdowns, then how we can clean up your ads and give them more engagement, and then the importance and where we can find the actual relevance score. So guys, thank you very much for listening, and Dankeschön, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.